بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Reading in the book حلية طالب العلم, the etiquette of the seeker of knowledge. We are on point number 60, and inshallah we'll be able to finish what is remaining of this book. The author, he mentions here deterring. Before that, we will move to actually point 58. I believe we're on point 58, where he says merely putting pen to paper. Precaution should be taken from writing books that lack creativity in the 8 aims of writing, which in the long run leads to merely putting pen to paper. Beware of becoming engaged in writing the tools required, becoming qualified in developing at the hands of your teachers, or else you will have registered a discredit against yourself. So the author, what he's speaking about here is that a student of knowledge should be careful not to begin authoring books and papers and articles before they are capable. Otherwise they will write something and it isn't beneficial, or they will write something and they haven't really benefited others by their writing. Perhaps they may confuse others because they're not qualified or not well read or don't have the research skills. And we know that when you write, you're supposed to write in order to teach the people a benefit or to summarize something, and there's intent behind writing. And so the author is requiring there that the student of knowledge know their level before writing. And for those reasons, many of the students, when they finish writing something, they present their work to a senior from the Shaykh to review their work and to edit and to remove or to advise whether the book should be published. And so it's a beneficial thing to have some kind of process to ensure, are you ready, are you qualified to publish something? And for those reasons, he mentions that Khatib al-Baghdadi rahimahullah said, "Man sannafa faqad ja'ala aqluhu ala tabaqin ya'riduhu ala nas." Whoever writes a book, then he has put his mind on a tray and offered it to the people. When you write something, everyone can see your level of intellect and your knowledge, because you've written that which is in your mind. And so if your level isn't very good in knowledge, or you're someone who makes much errors, then the people can see that you're ignorant. And if you're qualified, then someone will see from your writing. For those reasons, they narrate from some of the Salaf that they would ask them, how would you know someone has a good intellect? He said, when they write something, فَقَدْ أَجَادَ, then he did an excellent job. You know he is someone who has a good intellect. So today we should be careful that when we write something with precision, or otherwise, that we leave it to those who can do so, and we prepare ourselves to learn the basics until we are able to do that. And then here, Shaykh Uthaymeen, he mentions what is intended is that when you write something, it's as if you're telling people, come look, this is what I have of intellect, this is what I have in my mind, so everyone can verify and can examine. So very important, the student knowledge doesn't just write anything. He needs to plan ahead, and needs to be qualified, and needs to have done his homework, researched, and make sure even that someone review his work for him to ensure that of his quality. The point 59, that your stance on the mistakes of those who preceded you. And we need to be careful before we continue, that the Shaykh, he does mention, Shaykh Uthaymeen, that the point that needs to be reminded is that some people when they write, in reality, they're not really writing anything from themselves. They're just stealing it from other people. And that's an issue of plagiarism which Islam is against. And it's a big issue now with the copy and pasting on WhatsApp, and you find online, and people just stealing people's research and stealing people's books. And the Mashayikh, they have even have written about that as early as Imam Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah. And Suyuti actually has a book just about it. Imam Suyuti has written a book about the difference between the writers and the thieves. Right? And when he talks about who's a katib, who's really a writer, who's a thief, or someone who steals people's work. It's a very strong work, in particular at his time, because it occurred to him someone was taking from his own work. And so for us as students as well, we don't steal and copy and paste. من بركة العلم نسبته إلى أهله. From the barakah of ilm, that you attribute the benefit to its people. And today with our culture, everything's forwarded. Sometimes people forward other people's research and they're taking out their names. And sometimes you may reach your own work that you wrote and you say, subhanAllah, how did it reach my own work from other than me? Means that people today, they do this. So we have to be careful, because if it isn't your benefit, then you have to ascribe it to a source. And if you took from someone, there's no shame in saying, I took from someone. Because Imam Ibn Qayyim mentioned إعلام موقعين وَمِنْهُمْ سُرَّاقٌ بِأَقْلَامِهِمْ. That there are some people who are thieves with their pens. And he talks about later the punishment for such people who steal people's work. And then this is important because today plagiarism is not from the Western world. Islam, we're the forerunners in warning against plagiarism, such that this Shaykh himself, Shaykh Bakr Zaid, rahimahullah, in his Fiqh al-Nawazil, he has a whole section about this. And I suggest the brothers that we go there because it's in English. I don't know if the print is still available, but there is this book, Fiqh al-Nawazil, where he talks about these contemporary affairs and he deals with it there. Brings a qissa, very beautiful story between the scholars and how severe they were regarding stealing people's work. So Shaykh Uthaymin mentions that, and he mentions that in his time, from the Ajaib, he says so many books written on the Hajj rights. And he said when we were beginning as students, we only knew what was found in Zaid Mustaqni'. And now we find everybody has authorship in Hajj. In reality, they're just stealing from other people's work. This is what he mentions. And then the Shaykh, out of his humility, mentions the best of that book available, from the best regarding the Hajj rights, is the work of Shaykh Ibn Baz, rahimahullah, Tahqiq wal-Idah. And it's in English, it's a very small print. And you can see Ibn Shaykh has himself one, Ibn Uthaymin, but he's promoting the work of the Shaykh. So we benefit from that despite our era now, there's so much, but we have to remember where to give the due right to those who deserve it. Give credit to where it's due. Point 59, he says that your stance regarding the mistakes of those who preceded you, if you stumble across the mistake of a scholar, then don't become happy with it, so you may use it to degrade him. But you should only be happy that you corrected the issue. Because a just person will definitely affirm that there is no Iman except that he has, there is no Imam except that he has mistakes and self-delusions, especially those that are written excessively. Only a person who is a muta'alim, one who feigns and pretends to have knowledge, will make a controversy and be happy with it so as to degrade the preceding scholars. He wants to treat the minor cold, but ends up turning it into leprosy. So it's very beneficial for us that if we find mistakes from the ulama kibar, because everyone makes mistakes. All of us, we can make mistakes. And we have to remember the ulama are human beings. They get things right, other things wrong. When we find the mistakes, we fill that gap. If they made a mistake, we correct the issue to defend the shaykh's honor, and also at the same time to get to the heart of the matter, which is the mistake. But today you might find someone scouring other people's work to find mistakes. And as you say in English, they make a mountain out of a molehill. They take something small and they make it something big. Say, look what he wrote here, and look what he did there. And the reality is that you couldn't do any better. Had not been the shaykh preceded you with the mistake, you would have made it yourself. And this is the reality we find from some people. Allah musta'an. That's the sickness of the heart. But it can be also that everyone makes mistakes, so the true student of knowledge, he feels that mistake, he corrects it, and he thanks Allah for allowing him to see the error for what it is. Because no one is free of mistakes. So very important how we interact with the kibar ulama, and we should never ever deal with them in a way that is belittling and defaming. Whoever belittles the ulama, it's a severe issue will occur to him. It's a severe issue. I believe they narrate from Abdullah ibn Mubarak, rahimahullah, he mentioned, whoever belittles the ulama, ذهبت عنه آخرته. His akhirah will be in jeopardy. Means that the alim is one who, he's supposed to guide you to knowledge. And you are coming and belittle him, and degrading him. When in reality, Allah is one Allah has honored. Allah has honored the ulama. So very important as students, we shouldn't be at that level or that behavior that we belittle the shaykh because of the mistake he made. And of course, this is different than the person of innovation. And you're in the position of maqam and rad. You're refuting the statement. And refuting the position. This is different. You refute that which is refuted. And of course, with proper knowledge and with proper etiquette. But when you find a mistake, you shouldn't become overjoyed. This is not how we are. At the same time, someone may ask, how is it possible for the student of knowledge to have or find something which the alim didn't know? And some will believe this. The alim, he knows everything. Student of knowledge can't know anything. And we said before that it's possible the student of knowledge knows something which the alim didn't know. Just one thing, not everything. And that's why we remember the story of Sulaymaan alayhi salam and Hudhud. What did the Hudhud say to Sulaymaan? I have something which you don't have. Means I have some knowledge which you don't have. In this particular regard, regarding the Queen of Sheba and what he saw. So the ulama mentioned, yujad fi nahar ma la yujad fi al-bahar. It's possible to find the river but you don't find in the ocean. So sometimes a student of knowledge, Allah gives him the benefit to find something. He learned something and he corrected a scholar who's bigger than him in this particular issue. It doesn't mean he's more knowledgeable than him. It just means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favored you. So it's always important to be fair as well, that the ulama, they're not perfect. But their knowledge is there, and they have, of course, the knowledge that we're supposed to learn from them. Next, point 60, deterring dubious affairs. And it says here, do not make your heart like a sponge that absorbs anything that it comes across, and avoid arousing dubious issues in your mind or in the minds of others. Because dubious issues are swift abductors of the hearts, and the heart is weak. The main people who spread them are the carriers of wood, the mubtadi'ah, the innovators. So take protection from them. So here the Shaykh is referring to how we should interact with doubts and shubuhat when they arise. And he mentions here that we shouldn't make our heart like a sponge. And this is the advice of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. Imam Ibn Qayyim says rahimahullah that one day my teacher Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, he told me, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, لا تجعل قلبك إسفنجة يقبل ويشرب كل ما ورد عليه. He said, don't make your heart like that of a sponge which absorbs everything that presented to it. Rather, make your heart like a pure glass that protects what is in it and deflects what is outside of it. And so Shaykh Uthaymin, when commenting on this, and this statement was taken from Miftah Dar al-Sa'adah, the book Miftah Dar al-Sa'adah. Shaykh Uthaymin says what he intends by that, Zujajatu Safiyah, it means a pure glass. Such that if you pour something on top of the glass of dirt, the glass protects it, but what's inside is clean. So that's how our heart should be. When doubts come, we deflect it with our hearts. It doesn't go inside our hearts. Our heart has pure aqeedah, pure beliefs. When the doubt comes, it just deflects it. Just like the glass, if you pour it, it just washes. But if your heart's like a sponge, everything someone says, you're going to collect it. And the Shaykh says, subhanAllah, some people are like this. They have doubts in everything. And he says that they doubt everything that comes to their mind or comes to them. And they bring statements, what if? What about this? And how about that? And we know people like that. Something's mentioned, what about this? And what about that? Just you take what it came. And he says that one day someone came to Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, and he said, in kana kada wa kada, in relation to the Hajj rites, he said, ij'al ara'ayta fil Yemen. He said, take your if back to Yemen. Means if this and if that. And this is the kind of people you see. Something's mentioned, but what about this? You take the rule and the way it is. What is all this if? Because these people, they have doubts. They're always doubting. And so Shaykh says, subhanAllah, there's such people like this. Often their mind, anything that comes to it, doubt makes them confused. So in reality, we shouldn't be this way. And we shouldn't make our hearts like sponges. When you hear a doubt, you repel it. You seek refuge in Allah. And that's the fastest and easiest way to dispel doubt. As soon as it arises, seek Allah's refuge. And if it's really something which is bothering, you take it to the people of knowledge. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you do not know. So very important advice, and this advice is very helpful in today's time. Someone may come across a clip or something, and they say, oh, I didn't understand that. Leave it. Leave it alone. It doesn't concern you. And not everything you hear should be going to your heart. Point 61, beware of grammatical errors in Arabic. He said, avoid grammatical errors in speech and writing, for lack of grammatical errors honorable. Shows pure literary taste and appreciation of elegant meanings due to sound structure. It's narrated from Umar radiyallahu anhu that he said, learn Arabic grammar, for indeed it increases honor. And in reality, this narration is weak. And there's another one. He says that there are also narrations that the Salaf used to hit or discipline their children if they made grammatical errors. That is authentic from Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma in Adab Mufrad Imam Bukhari. So some narrations have come about the excellence of Arabic. Some of those narrations are weak, and some of them are authentic. But the last one is authentic. Ibn Umar, he used to discipline his children if they made grammatical errors, lahan in the kalam. And this is something which shows that they used to take concern about Arabic grammar and how to speak it, how to speak Arabic properly. And the Khadir Baghdadi narrates from some of the Salaf that they mentioned that if someone who makes grammatical errors writes from another one who makes grammatical errors, who writes from another one does so, you're going to end up with Persian. Means that it's going to be so far away from Arabic, it's no longer Arabic. And this is the reality why grammatical errors are dangerous. They corrupt the meaning, especially of the sacred texts. So it is to remember that you need to learn them. And some of the Salaf were cautious not to go too much into it. As he mentioned some of the narrations, Khadir al-Baghdadi brings al-Iqtida al-Ilm al-Amal. It's in English as well. That actions necessitate knowledge and necessitate actions. That some of the Salaf didn't appreciate or didn't value too much Arabic grammar. That someone said that Arabic grammar to your speech is like salted food. Just need enough to correct your tongue. Because the Arabic grammar can become very in-depth. It's a deep ocean. And then if you keep studying, you're wasting your time. Because there are things you have to know, your beliefs, your fiqh, tafsir, hadith, and all you're doing is learning the depths of the Arabic grammar. Not to say that it's not beneficial, but someone has to know the priority. Some Salaf were also discouraging altogether. And I mentioned some of those narrations. And some of them, they're authentic, some are not. But mention one example that it was, Shaykh says himself, beware of these statements. Shaykh Bakr rahimahullah was specialized in Arabic. As you can tell, if you know and read his work, his Arabic is very, very strong. And so that's why Shaykh Ibn Abdul said you need a dictionary when you're reading his work, because of the elegance and the balagha the Shaykh had. It's very tough. But the reality is, he was concerned with Arabic. So he said, don't pay attention to statements of Bishr al-Hafi, one of the Salaf, who when someone said to him, learn Arabic grammar. And he said, I'm afraid I'll become astray. So he said to him, say, Zaid struck Amr, in a grammatical order. So he said, oh my brother, why did he strike him? So he said, oh Abu Nasr, it's just a principle established. He said, I don't need something which begins with such things. Means I don't need these kind of lies, what is this? So it means he was discouraging of studying Arabic, even though it's a method. He said, leave it then. And some of the Salaf were like this opinion that too much was not good. But of course, no one said you should not learn it. You have to learn. And we also caution that it's possible even the great Imam make mistakes in Lahan. And this is something which you find the great Imam, even those ulama who are grammarians, they spoke, sometimes they made mistakes. So it's not blameworthy if someone, even with his knowledge, that he gave a khutbah or he gave a lesson, he made some lahan. Great ulama, they even do it. There's some hadith and narrations showing that. So no one's made mistakes, but not to the degree that everything they made mistakes in. So it's a benefit that you study that as well, to help you in your writing and your reading. Next, the Shaykh says, beware of premature intellectuality. Beware of premature intellectuality by producing ideologies before their full development. What he's intending by this is that somebody is coming up with some ideas which in reality have no foundation in the deen, or they're not even based on the ulum. And someone should be careful not to develop anything. Rather, he should use the nusus to guide him to find what Islam has taught. So sometimes you find that some ulama, they discuss very advanced issues. So this is not for the beginner. The beginner should stay on the topics of that which came before and study the basic ulum alat, the instrumental knowledge, tajweed, Arabic grammar, aqidah, basic fiqh, because he needs to build the foundation. Mustalah al-hadith, ulum al-Quran. And after layering the foundation, he continues to develop them until he gets to a stance where he's able to venture into something more complicated. So this is important for us to be aware of those things. Some people, you find them, they're involved in that which is not befitting for them. And then he mentions, beware of the new Israeliyat, which he says is really the venom of the Orientalists. People who come with these new ideologies and things that have come from outside of Islam. I said, as for the new ones that have filtered into al-fikr al-Islami after revolution of civilization and meeting of one knowledge with another, and the restraint of the spread of Islam, then it's pure evil and a tribulation gushing forth, and the Muslims' heedlessness has turned them away from it. Means nowadays there's so much mixing between the Western knowledge and Eastern knowledge. Means the knowledge that comes from Islam and the Western paradigm, and people are putting these knowledge together. And some people have come now trying to read into the Quran and Sunnah that which is taken from the West, and they're saying this is something new and this is from Islam. Even though the word the Shaykh uses here of the people who are, he says fikr Islami, the ideological Islamic ideology. The Shaykh himself even detested this word. There's no such thing as Islamic ideology or mufakkir or someone Islamic thinker. These are not terminologies that were known to us. But what he's worrying about is the Orientalists now, they projected something, type of knowledge that they have to their schooling and their education. And now people are taking that and trying to put with Islam, instead of taking what Islam has come with and then judging others, or judging and evaluating other traditions or other pieces of knowledge. Because at the end of the day, for the Muslim, the upper hand is, and the final return is to the Quran and Sunnah. It is not to some other ideology. Allah revealed to us the Kitab and Sunnah. And this is important because sometimes we have people who, they find the final source is the other things. They may say that they study Quran and Sunnah, but really they have loyalty to some other ideology, which is for them to decide what's right and what's wrong. And this is a dangerous thing. So always we have to remember that we stick to the text, what the texts are telling us, and we study them with the intent that Allah wants from us. Ala muradillah. Study the book and the Sunnah for what Allah intended. Not that what we're looking for and that which we're trying to justify. And sometimes it becomes that people who have little knowledge of Islam but much knowledge of the West, and you find that they're doing this. That they're reading in other things and saying the Quran is talking about socialism and Islam is teaching. These are things outside of the deen, Kitab and Sunnah. So the Quran and Sunnah, they've already come with clarity, and we don't need to be doing that. Point 64, he says, beware of the Byzantine debate. And what I mean by this, he says, a lame debate, or that which is of little benefit. For the Byzantines, they used to debate the gender of the angels, while the enemy was at the gates of their country, until they were defeated by them. And also debate that has little benefit leads away from the path. The way of the Salaf is to refrain from excessive or extensive dispute and argumentation. So this is important for us, that we shouldn't be debating things that have no benefit. ما لا ينفع. Some people debate issues. Shaykh Uthaymin, he says, for example, debating, for example, what's the gender of the angels? Can we say they're male? Are they not male? And these things which are, even though there are some speech on it, it's not beneficial really. It won't benefit someone if they knew this or that. Or he says other examples you may find of today people debating things. And the Shaykh says it was referred to as the Benzi time debate because these people were debating this while there's danger approaching. So they were so caught up in the dispute that they were defeated. An example the Shaykh also mentions like the chicken and the egg. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Allah musta'an. Even now you find science is weighing on it. No benefit really in this, which came first. And this kind of debates you find, if you concluded, it doesn't benefit you. And if you didn't know, it didn't benefit you. It didn't harm you. So as students, we shouldn't be debating these things. He narrated Hassan al-Basri one day, he saw people arguing. He said, these people have become bored with worship, and speech has become light upon their tongue, and their piety has decreased, and that's why they speak. And so very important, if we have free time to debate every issue, that means we have little to do. We have little time for worship, little time for real study. And so while there is room for debate, we know from the Manhaj Salafi, the way that it used to be, do you leave off argumentation? Imam Ahmed, when he begins Usul al-Sunnah, he reminds us of this principle, Tarkul Jidal wal-Mira wa khusumat fi din. We leave off disputing, argumentation, and quarreling in the religion. Because if it's intended to benefit someone, then it has principles. You have to principles of munadara. And if it's not intended for benefit, then it's raging ego. Someone wants to defeat someone else. And that's why when you debate, it's for the sake of Allah. And as Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah used to intend to find the truth either on his tongue or the others. This is how we should be. When we debate with someone, we're trying to find the haqq. We don't want to debate with someone just because it is for the sake of debating. And debate is different than review. Reviewing knowledge by way of the discussion is different than debating. So we shouldn't debate in that which isn't beneficial for us. And this applies also online now, as you see people on comment boards or forums debating day and night about things that they have no knowledge of. You find the Facebook, YouTube comments, people debating on everything. Every video they have a comment. And they have no knowledge of what is being said or what isn't being said. So this kind of person really, if they do this a lot, they become so misguided. Because their heart will be exposed to all kinds of discussions. And we said before that the Rasul ﷺ told us, from the pathway of misguidance is often debating. That the people never became misguided after being upon guidance, illa utu jadal. Except they were often debating. And if you look today, we find that in the WhatsApp groups or online, for people just debating, they have so much free time. So the student of knowledge should be careful not to debate. Even when someone knows they're upon haqq, you leave it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because by doing so, number one, you protect your time, and also your mind and your tongue from saying that which is not beneficial. And when a debate does arise with good etiquette, and that's what the Salaf, they have incidences in which they debated. And you can read them. Debates are based on knowledge, and the great Imma debated to find the truth. Whereas today you might find that we're just debating for the sake of, to show that we have something of knowledge. We have to check our intention. Because you may debate with someone, بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُم. You have that as Allah describes the Jews. When Allah gave them knowledge, they transgressed against one another with the knowledge that they had. They had knowledge, each of them was debating or disputing, transgressing with knowledge amongst themselves. I mean, sometimes you know something, you just want to show someone you know what, you're just debating with them to put them down. Whereas Allah describes the end of Surah Isra, that the believers and the ulama, those people, they have a lot of khushu' of Allah. When they hear the ayat of Allah, they fall down in prostration. So humility comes with knowledge, not debating, disputing. So we have to be careful that this is not our characteristic. And this is especially in relation to the first shibr, the first stage of knowledge, that you debate everything and everyone, people on the street, people in the home, everyone you debate. Because when you learn a little bit, you become fiery, and you want to talk about everything. And you want to guide everyone. And sometimes you even think to yourself that you're something when you're not. And this is important because this is the reality why the damage is done. People are misguided or someone moves away from deen when they see someone like this. Right? They just maybe yesterday began to learn, and in their mind they became Shaykh al-Islam or the Mujaddid of this land, and then they're going and they're debating everyone. Until we find now with our era, there are some people, had they just kept quiet, they would have helped everyone. And this is something important. Some of the ulama, they mention that there would have been less disputes in Islam if those who didn't know just kept quiet. But today everyone is speaking, everyone has an opinion, and this is something we shouldn't be like this. Even when we don't know, we say Allahu A'lam immediately. And we'll look into it. We ask the ulama. That should be our adab. And this is powerful because this is how the knowledge is preserved. You make ta'zeem al-ilm, but also you save yourself. And the last point the Shaykh finishes the book with, when he means that from the advices, before he gives a final advice, is that there is no wala and bara, means the allegiance and disallegiance. No wala and bara should be pledged over sectarianism and partisanship. He's talking about hizbiyya. And it's a very important benefit that the student of knowledge should not be falling into hizbiyya. Hizbiyya is dangerous. When you have wala and bara, dayiq, restricted, allegiance, disallegiance for someone, or some idea, or some book, or some ideology, which is not in the Quran and Sunnah. So here we benefit that people should be, a student of knowledge should tread the path of Salaf, as the Shaykh advised us, but we shouldn't become hizbi, means that somebody who, because he's friends or someone he knows, he just defends that person relentlessly, even if they're wrong or they're wrong, or he defends an idea which is not even proven in the Quran and Sunnah, or an organization, or a masjid, whatever it may be. And Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah said a beautiful statement, وَلَيْسَ لِأَحَدٍ أَنْ يُنَصِّبَ لِلْأُمَّةِ شَخْصًا يَدْعُو إِلَى طَرِيقَتِهِ وَيُوَالِي وَيُعَادِ عَلَيْهَا غَيْرِ النَّبِيِّ صلى الله عليه وسلم. Majmu' Fatawa Ibn Taymiyyah said, it is not allowed for anyone to set up someone for the ummah, a person, in which they call to their path and have allegiance, disallegiance for them, except for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is important. This speech Shaykh Islam is showing us is refuting the hizbiyya. And hizbiyya can be subtle and it can be apparent. And the definition of hizbiyya is to have a restricted form of allegiance and disallegiance. Because wala and bara should be to the haqq, to Allah and His Messenger, to Hizbullah. It shouldn't be towards things that you have. You like the Shaykh, someone said something bad, you don't like the other person. What if the person said something correct? Or someone has, for example, a belief or some ideology that they're loyal to, and so they defend it, and they accept friends based on it, they reject others based on it. This is not the way to believe. We have to always put the Quran and Sunnah in front of us. And no one is above that. This is important because even with the ulama, we should not be putting them forward to the point where someone, he will take their speech in front of the Kitab and the Sunnah, or put their speech in front of people as if you have to accept that. So the danger is that hizbiyya is dangerous. The Shaykh that he mentioned some beautiful advice. You have Ibn Qayyim, he talks about, very long passage, but we'll take that which we need. And description of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And this is taken from, I believe, Madarij al-Salikin, where he talks about who are Ahl Sunnah. He says that Ahl Sunnah are the following people. He said, rather, if you were to be asked about his Shaykh, he will reply, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Someone asks you, who's your Shaykh? That's what he says. Today, people will not accept it, right? Someone said that, they will think something's wrong with this person. He says, and if to ask, what's your way? What's your tariqah you follow? Tariqah. You say your path is adhering, means ittiba'. Because someone asks you, what's your tariqah? He's asking probably one of the 4 or 5 tariqahs. You say, my tariqah is ittiba'. I follow Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is important because now people may ask you that and you have to give another answer. No delay for it. Someone asks you which tariqah is Qadiriyya, or someone will say Chishtiyya. Where does this come from? So when someone asks you, Ittiba' al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah says, Ittabi'u ma unzila ilaykum min rabbikum. Allah tells you to follow, that's my way, Ittiba'. And if they were to ask then, what's your uniform? What's your shi'ar? What's your sign or label? He says, At-taqwa. That's your sign. You don't have any special clothing, special color. Your sign and your uniform is taqwa. And they ask you madhab, you say the implementation of the sunnah. And then he says, remember, as Allah he says, and about this, yuriduna wajha, people who are seeking Allah's face. It's a beautiful speech. The ulama often quote. And this is important because today these things have become labels in our ummah. Someone asks you madhab, you have a particular. Your tariqah, another one. What color you wear, this one. And it ends up, this is not what Rasul sallallahu taught us. Quran and Sunnah, this is what he left with us. This is how we should be. As for these other things, they came later on, and in reality have no proof for it. So we have to be careful. And it's not now. In the time of the ulama, the past, they had answers to these questions. I believe it was Imam Ibn Shaheen, rahimahullah, that whenever someone would bring out the discussion of madhab, he said, my madhab is Muhammadi. I follow madhab Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As to test the people who were often debating madhab Shafi'i, Hanafi, and they were taking these madhab beyond their bounds. So whenever they used to come up, we said Muhammadi, that's my madhab. I follow the madhab Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And Imam Ibn Kathir, if you read his tafsir, he brings a beautiful tafsir under the ayah in Surah Isra, يَوْمَ نَدْعُو كُلُّ أُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ. The day Allah will call everyone behind their Imam. He says, Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Ahlul Hadith, this is the greatest ayah for them, for they have no other Imam except Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yawm al-Qiyamah, Allah is going to call every nation behind their Imam. And so what is the Imam of the Ahlul Sunnah? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is important. When someone asks, who's your Imam? In reality, we know what people intend. Which are the four scholars or which scholars you return to? And there's no shame in that. Someone goes back to certain ulama who he trusts, who are knowledgeable, sound creed. This is good. But in terms of true allegiance, this was the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is what the deen came with. Sahaba, they were very careful of this. Because when he died, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr and Umar were alive, the Sahaba didn't make Abu Bakr and Umar above Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even we know the narration, Ibn Abbas was very upset when he heard people doing this. And he got to the point where they're disputing. And Shaykh he speaks about this in the beginning of his Majmu' Fatawa, about people starting to saying, are you following the path of Ali or Uthman? And they said, well, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what is this? You know, people are doing that. Sahaba, they're not like this. They're making divisions. And so Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we don't have the Hizbiyah. Sad to say, Hizbiyah now has become prevalent in our era, and we have to be cautious of it. We have to be cautious of it because that ruins a student. Shaykh Muqbil rahimahullah, how many advices did he have in relation to how Hizbiyah destroys the student? Someone becomes so affiliated with groups and organizations. He said Hizbiyah destroys, it erases knowledge. He says such that you find some people who memorize the Quran and do the Hizbiyah, they know nothing. Because they're so busy going out collecting money, they forgot the whole Quran. They forgot all the adillah they used to know. And we find today, even now, that someone may fall into Hizbiyah and humiliate himself. Because what it honors us is following the Quran and Sunnah according to the way of the Sahaba. This what honors us. So as a Muslim, we should be careful. The student of knowledge, if he falls into Hizbiyah, it is very dangerous for their ta'aleem. It ruins them. And there's many examples of people who fell into the ways of the Hizbiyin. And Hizbiyin means the people who are falling into this way, they have money and wealth, and they try to encourage people to seek status and organization and power. And then you sought those and you lost your knowledge. So always you have to remember, what's our intention? طالب عمد الله سبحانه وتعالى. It's not for money, it's not for wealth. Allegiance, true allegiance belongs to Allah, His Messenger. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He describes to us in the Quran, Hizbullah, Allah's party. And these are saved sect, they are the people who are muflihun, successful. So we need to ask ourselves, how can we be part of that? Not these other things that unfortunately has come. The last advice, point 66, he says the things that nullify this Hilya. This whole book is called Hilya, which is an adornment. It's an etiquette. So the Shaykh says what can ruin the Hilya is the following things. Number one, disclosing secrets. And that shouldn't be the way of the believer. Hibd sir is from the deen. So if someone gives you a secret, you shouldn't be sharing it with people. Number two, spreading rumors. Right? Brother Majid just spoke about that. Spreading rumors and tale carrying and gossiping. That's not the way of the student of knowledge. Vainglory and lying. So someone has vanity, thinks there's something, or they're lying. Of course, one of the worst characteristics. Number four, excessive joking. It's very important. Student knowledge shouldn't always be joking. It's between the balance. Sometimes they joke, sometimes they're serious. Because when you excessively joke, then it lowers your status amongst the people. Until some of the ulama, if you read the books of Jarh wa Ta'deer or Kutub al-Rijal, they used to describe some people and criticizing them that they were jokers. They often make jokes. So-and-so was mazah. It was often laughing, often making jokes. And why is this important? Because people might not see you in great position. If you're always laughing, they say, I'm not sure this person, he knows anything. Of course, if someone is in a private gathering, this is a little bit different. But they have to be balanced, always aware of themselves. Number five, interrupting two people during conversation. And this is something the Salaf used to teach. And it's based on a hadith and adillah that when people are talking, you let them finish, then you take your turn to speak. So you don't interrupt the people. If someone's talking, you ask permission if you can say something. And there's evidence, I believe something was posted before on the website. Number six, spite. Means hoping for evil against people. And hoping for their, and hoping, and behaving in a way that is ill will towards them. Number seven, jealousy. And this is something which you find books have been written and chapters. Ulama have discussed about student knowledge and jealousy between the tullab. And this is something all of us can attest to. That sometimes the human being, he may find in his heart jealousy for someone because of Allah has given them. And it's human nature. Someone has something you like. Someone has something more knowledge than you. Someone has something, and it's a human nature. The correct way then is to protect yourself from it, not to make apparent. That you have this and you ask Allah to grant you just as you grant that person that khair. This is how we should be. For someone more knowledge than you, there's no benefit, no harm. There should be something good because that person upon khair, they can help the ummah. Our goal is to help the ummah of Islam to be upon the way of da'wah and khair. We don't want to everyone return back to you. And if this is the intention you have, then what's the benefit? And if you also analyze this, you see that the person who's jealous of others because of their knowledge, they will never become the most knowledgeable person anyways. For you can be more knowledgeable than Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr and Umar radhiyallahu anhuma. And of course, about all of those who have knowledge is Allah. So what is the benefit then of being jealous amongst the people? Allah, He gives wisdom and knowledge to whomsoever He wills. So jealousy is very dangerous, and it can lead to things which are unacceptable. For example, people making dua against others, people wishing evil for others. And that's why the student should always be careful with the dhikr of Allah, making dhikrullah and adhkar to protect himself from the evil eye and from jealousy. And I mentioned a story of one of our Shaykh, I believe Shaykh Khawlani, he mentioned to us, or narrated that if you look in the book, Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, rahimahullah, he has a book, Kitab al-Ilm, which is, I believe, the Sharh of Umdat al-Ahkam. And this great Imam, he wrote this book in 20 volumes. And he was a Shafi'i, for those who don't know. And the book was considered his priceless book. He spent so much effort. And today we only have 4 volumes with us. And he said what happened was the Hanabila, when they realized that he wrote this great book, and because he wasn't Hanbali, they took the rest of those books and threw it away. A'damuhu, they stole the book and part of it. Till today he says we only have 4 volumes. You can see the 4 volumes published. It used to be 20. That's how hasad can lead to. They steal the knowledge, subhanAllah, hadith, and to throw it because he wasn't from them. Na'udhu billah min dhalik. That's how can lead to. That's why it's so scary that sometimes jealousy can lead to this point. Even though he wasn't from their madhab, he could have, of course, they could have encouraged the book and the benefit in there, but we see that it happened. And whatever survived, we have with us today. So that's a good example of how dangerous jealousy can reach. And then next, and point number 8, evil suspicion, su'u dhan. And Brother Majid was speaking about similar topics. We shouldn't suspect others. We shouldn't have evil thoughts of them. When we see someone who is benefiting, we shouldn't say they're looking for the money. They're looking for... No, we don't know. Allah knows people's intention. If something's apparent, we judge on the parent. But if we don't have, we leave it to Allah. Sitting with the people of innovation, it's very important. We keep to the people of khair. Stay from those people who are not going to benefit you, harm you in your deen. Allah, He says in the Quran, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu taqullaha wa kunu ma'a sadiqeen. All you who believe, fear Allah and be with those who are righteous, those who have taqwa, those who are truthful. And number 10, walking in the direction of lawful affairs. Means you have to be careful where you're going and where you're walking. Student knowledge shouldn't be in places which are not befitting them. Means they have something of knowledge. If they're hanging around some place, something haram maybe happens there. If they're there, people think, subhanAllah, how come the Shaykh is there? What is he doing there? Even though he might just be passing, it's not a good look to be there. Or for example, he's sitting with people who are engaged in that. So it's always important to stay away from sins and the people of sins. And the Shaykh advises again that if you don't prevent yourself from the sins, then it will weaken the piety and lead to backbiting and joking excessively and carrying rumors, etc. And he makes dua of completing the book, saying, May Allah make your steps firm and grant everyone piety and success in the second and the first life. And may Allah blessings, peace and blessings and salutations be upon the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions. And with that, inshallah, we'll end our lesson and what we have been reading. Alhamdulillah, we complete the reading of this book. If anyone has any questions or something they want to mention now.
What did Ibn say about the person that authors the book? It's like
What's that?
What did Ibn say about the person that authors the book, and it's like he's going to the people?
So someone who writes a book, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen said, it's like telling them, come look at what I have in my mind. Come look at my intellect. Because when you write what's in your mind. So people have now a chance to see what you think like and what you know. And so when you write, you have to be careful. You have to be properly prepared. Otherwise, if you're not qualified, people will say, oh, this person doesn't know anything. Because if he knew better, he wouldn't have said this and wrote that. So be careful when you write when you have a ability to do so.
Can you give us a background of Abdul Harun?
Allah Alam, Abdul Harun.
It mentions here that I think we took it last lesson.
I don't know the author's biography, Wallahu Alam. Perhaps we can look it up. You mentioned it later, yes.
So what was the name of the book that, the true writers and the people that steal?
I forgot the title now directly. I think it's something, Mel Fajr remembers. The book by Suyuti about the difference between a thief and the author. Farid, Bani. This book, الفارق بين المؤلف والسارق. So this book is it's in, you can see it in PDF form, where he writes about this topic of stealing people's work, and something happened to him in his life, so he wrote about it about a particular person who was doing that, and so he was warning us from it. Now, any other questions? Yes.
What other books are basically it's basically explanation of Umdat al-Ahkam? That's like
There are many explanations of Umdat al-Ahkam, right, contemporary and those written before. So some ulama, they mentioned there are many, but this example, Imam. And of course, if someone looks, you see that explanation different size too. Some are long, some are not. Shaykh Bassam, he has one, in our contemporary scholars. Shaykh Uthaymeen, Fawzan, so many explanations. So if someone wants, and this is Umdat al-Ahkam Sughra we're talking about, the small one, but there's Umdat al-Ahkam Kubra, a bigger one. So that one's like, it's the size of Bulugh Maram. So this is the Sughra. So I believe the best they mentioned is Imam. Some mention also Sharh ibn Munaqqin. These are amongst the long shuruhat of this book. Now.
What's the Arabic for the English you said? For the one who is like the one who treats? I think you said the Quran and he ends up making leprosy? What's the Arabic?
The Arabic for that, we're going to read here, the Shaykh he mentions.